From a discovery made over pie at a restaurant to a climactic song that became a TikTok sensation decades later, the making of Set It Off is packed with surprising secrets. Did you know the script was rejected twice, theater violence erupted nationwide, or that one character's name mysteriously changes in the credits? These behind-the-scenes revelations prove this iconic heist film has more twists than its bank robbery plot. Fact 1. Waitress to movie star discovery. One of the most remarkable casting discoveries in 1990s, Hollywood happened not in an audition room or talent agency, but over coffee and pie at a regular restaurant. Kimberly Elise, who would go on to deliver one of the most heartbreaking performances in Set It Off as the shy single mother Tician, was working as a waitress when producer Dale Pollock spotted her serving tables and knew immediately that he had found something special. At the time, Elise had no professional acting experience and was simply trying to make ends meet in the restaurant industry, much like the character she would eventually portray on screen. Producer Dale Pollock was having a meal when he noticed something compelling about the young woman taking his order. Whether it was her natural presence, her expressive face, or simply an indefinable quality that caught his attention, Pollock saw potential that others had missed. The discovery was so spontaneous and unlikely that it sounds almost too perfect for a movie about women fighting against economic hardship and limited opportunities. Here was a real person working in the service industry who would soon be cast to play a character struggling with similar circumstances, bringing an authenticity to the role that no amount of method acting could have achieved. Set It Off became Kimberly Elise's film debut, launching what would become a distinguished career in Hollywood. Her portrayal of Tician, the soft-spoken mother whose son gets taken away by Child Protective Services, remains one of the most emotionally resonant performances in the entire film. The vulnerability and desperation she brought to the character felt completely genuine, perhaps because her journey from waitress to movie star gave her a deep understanding of what it meant to fight for survival and opportunity. This chance encounter in a restaurant changed the trajectory of Elise's entire life, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries happen in the most ordinary places. The producer's instinct to approach a working waitress and offer her a major film role was both bold and prescient, as Elise would go on to appear in acclaimed films like Beloved and work with directors like Tyler Perry throughout her career. Fact 2. Written for stars who didn't exist. In one of the most unusual casting decisions in Hollywood history, screenwriter Takashi Bufford wrote the entire Set It Off script with two specific actresses in mind for the lead roles, even though he had never met either of them and had no guarantee they would ever read his work. Bufford specifically crafted the characters of Stoney and Cleo with Jada Pinkett Smith and Queen Latifah in mind, writing dialogue and situations that he believed would perfectly showcase their unique talents and screen presence. This approach to screenwriting was highly unconventional in the 1990s, when most scripts were written as general stories that could be adapted for whatever actors eventually signed on to the project. Bufford took the opposite approach, essentially creating custom-tailored roles for two performers he admired from afar, but had no personal or professional connection to at the time he was developing the story. The fact that Bufford was writing for actresses he had never encountered made his approach even more remarkable, as he was basing his character development entirely on their public personas and previous work, rather than any knowledge of their actual personalities or acting preferences. He was essentially gambling that his instincts about what would work for these two performers were correct, and that somehow the script would eventually find its way to them. What makes this story even more extraordinary is that Bufford's vision ultimately came to pass exactly as he had imagined it. Both Jada Pinkett Smith and Queen Latifah not only read the script, but agreed to take on the roles that had been specifically written for them by a screenwriter they had never met. The chemistry and authenticity that both actresses brought to their characters suggest that Bufford's intuitive understanding of their strengths as performers was remarkably accurate. This creative process speaks to the power of artistic vision and the sometimes mysterious ways that the right material finds its way to the right people. Bufford's decision to write for specific actresses he had never met turned out to be one of the key factors that made Set It Off such a compelling and authentic portrayal of friendship and desperation. Fact 3. Three-time rejection before success. The script for Set It Off had to endure a frustrating journey of repeated rejections before it ever made it to the big screen, with New Line Cinema turning down the project not once, not twice, but 3 separate times before finally recognizing its potential. This pattern of rejection was particularly surprising given that the final film would go on to become New Line Cinema's highest-grossing movie of 1996, earning over $41 million worldwide against a modest $9 million budget. Each time the studio passed on the script, the writers and producers had to regroup and find new ways to pitch the story, refining their approach and addressing whatever concerns the executives had raised during their previous meetings. The persistence required to keep bringing the same project back to the same studio after multiple rejections speaks to the deep belief that the creative team had in their story about 4 women turning to bank robbery as a way out of their desperate circumstances. What's particularly interesting about this rejection process is that when New Line Cinema finally did accept the script on the 4th attempt, they immediately recognized that it needed additional development work. The studio decided to expand the backstories of the 4 female leads, adding more depth and context to explain why each woman would be driven to such extreme measures. This collaborative approach between the studio and the writers helped transform what was already a compelling story into something with even more emotional resonance and character development. The studio's decision to enhance the motivations behind each character's journey into crime proved to be crucial to the film's ultimate success, as audiences connected deeply with the personal struggles that drove Stoney, Cleo, Frankie, and Tician to their breaking points. The irony is that New Line Cinema's initial hesitation about the project led them to demand exactly the kind of improvements that would make the final film so powerful and memorable. This back-and-forth process between rejection and refinement ultimately created a stronger, more nuanced story that resonated with both critics and audiences when it finally reached theaters. Fact 4. Twins playing one character. In an unusual casting decision that most viewers never notice, the character of Jajuan, who is Tician's young son in Set It Off, was actually played by real-life twins Vincent Baum and Van Baum, with both brothers receiving official screen credit for portraying the same single character. This twin casting approach is relatively rare in Hollywood and was likely used to work around child labor laws that strictly limit how many hours young actors can work on film sets. The use of twins to play one character is a common practice when working with very young children or infants, but it becomes more noticeable and challenging when the child actors are old enough to have distinct facial features and mannerisms that audiences might pick up on. In the case of Set It Off, the Baum twins were skilled enough actors that most viewers watching the film have no idea they're seeing 2 different people playing Jajuan throughout various scenes. Child labor regulations in the film industry are particularly strict about limiting working hours, mandatory breaks, and educational requirements, which can make shooting schedules extremely complicated when a young actor has significant screen time. By casting twins in the role, the production team could essentially double their available filming time with the character, while still staying within legal guidelines for child actors. The fact that both Vincent Baum and Van Baum appear in the film's credits under the same character name is somewhat unusual, as many productions that use twin actors will only credit one name or use a combined credit. The decision to list both brothers individually suggests that the filmmakers wanted to acknowledge each child's contribution to bringing Jajuan to life on screen. This behind-the-scenes detail adds an interesting layer to one of the film's most emotionally significant relationships, as Jajuan's bond with his mother Tician becomes a driving force behind her decision to participate in the bank robberies. The twins' seamless portrayal of this crucial character helped maintain the emotional authenticity of scenes that were central to the film's plot and Tician's character development. Fact 5. Ghostbusters Firehouse Connection. Movie fans watching Set It Off are actually seeing a piece of cinema history without realizing it, as Cleo's auto repair shop was filmed inside Fire Station No. 23 in downtown Los Angeles, the exact same location that served as the interior headquarters for the Ghostbusters in both the original 1984 film and its 1989 sequel. This historic firehouse has become one of the most recognizable filming locations in Hollywood, appearing in more than 50 different productions over the years. Fire Station Number 23 was built in 1910 and served as an active Los Angeles Fire Department station until it was decommissioned in 1966, after which it became a popular filming location due to its authentic architecture and spacious interior layout. When the Ghostbusters production team was looking for a location that could serve as the team's headquarters, they chose this firehouse for its interior scenes, while using a different firehouse in New York City for the exterior shots that audiences see in the movie. The building's interior remained largely unchanged between the Ghostbusters films and Set It Off, which means that when Queen Latifah's character Cleo is working on cars and planning heists in her garage, she's standing in the same space where Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson filmed their iconic supernatural comedy scenes more than a decade earlier. The production designers for Set It Off transformed the space to look like a working auto shop, but the basic structure and layout that Ghostbusters fans would recognize remained intact. This connection creates an interesting link between two completely different genres and decades of filmmaking, with the same physical space serving as both a headquarters for paranormal investigators and a garage for bank robbers. The firehouse has also appeared in numerous other films and television shows, including The Mask, National Security, and Police Academy 2, making it one of the most frequently used filming locations in Los Angeles. The building's caretaker since 1985 has been working to preserve and restore the historic structure, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Fact 6. Dr. Dre's first film appearance. Set It Off holds a special place in entertainment history as the film that marked Dr. Dre's very first appearance as an actor, introducing the legendary hip-hop producer and rapper to the world of cinema in a small but memorable role as a weapons dealer named Black Sam. At the time of filming, in 1996, Dr. Dre was already a massive figure in the music industry, having co-founded the groundbreaking rap group N.W.A., and established himself as one of the most influential producers in hip-hop through his work with Death Row Records and artists like Snoop Dogg and Tupac Shakur. The character of Black Sam appears in a crucial scene where Queen Latifah's character Cleo goes to purchase firearms for the group's planned bank robberies, and Dr. Dre's natural screen presence and laid-back delivery made the scene feel authentic and convincing. His performance was understated but effective, showing a different side of his personality than what fans were used to seeing in music videos or interviews, and demonstrating that his talents extended beyond the recording studio. This acting debut came at an interesting point in Dr. Dre's career, as he was transitioning away from his work with Death Row Records and beginning to focus more on his own Aftermath Entertainment label, which he had founded earlier that same year. The timing of his film appearance coincided with a period when many hip-hop artists were beginning to explore opportunities in movies and television, though few would go on to have the sustained success in both mediums that Dr. Dre would eventually achieve. Director F. Gary Gray, who had previously worked in music videos and had connections throughout the hip-hop community, was likely instrumental in bringing Dr. Dre into the project for this cameo role. The casting choice added authenticity to the film's portrayal of Los Angeles street culture and helped establish connections with the hip-hop audience that would become a significant part of the movie's fan base. This small role in Set It Off marked the beginning of what would become occasional acting appearances for Dr. Dre throughout his career. Fact 7. Bank sign, error, that made it to film. Sharp-eyed viewers who pay close attention to background details in Set It Off can spot a glaring error that somehow made it through the entire production process and into the final cut of the film, where the bank teller windows in the opening robbery scene display signs reading FIDC instead of the correct abbreviation FDIC, which stands for Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This mistake is particularly noticeable because the signs appear prominently in multiple shots during one of the movie's most important scenes, where Vivica Fox's character Frankie witnesses the violent bank robbery that eventually gets her fired from her job. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is a crucial part of the American banking system, providing insurance protection for bank deposits up to certain limits and displaying their familiar FDIC logo in virtually every bank across the United States. Any American who has ever been inside a bank would be familiar with these signs, which makes it surprising that no one during the filming process caught the incorrect spelling before the cameras rolled. This type of prop error typically gets caught during pre-production, when set decorators are creating realistic-looking bank interiors, or during filming when directors and cinematographers review their shots, or even during post-production when editors are assembling the final cut. The fact that FDIC made it through all these stages suggests that everyone involved was focused on the dramatic action of the robbery scene rather than the accuracy of the background signage. What makes this mistake even more ironic is that the film's plot revolves entirely around banking and financial institutions, with Frankie's insider knowledge of bank procedures serving as a key element in the women's successful robbery spree. The production team went to great lengths to make the bank robberies look realistic and procedurally accurate, yet they missed this basic detail that any bank customer would immediately recognize as wrong. This kind of continuity error has become a favorite discovery for movie enthusiasts who enjoy spotting mistakes that filmmakers never intended audiences to notice. Fact 8. Friday Easter egg in background. Director F. Gary Gray included a clever visual reference to his previous film Friday by having two background actors at the gun range wear clothing that was identical to the outfits worn by the main characters Craig and Smokey in his 1995 comedy hit. This subtle Easter egg appears during the scene where Cleo, TT, and Frankie visit the shooting range to look for their boss Luther, and while the reference is easy to miss if you're not specifically looking for it, it represents a playful nod from Gray to his earlier work. Friday, which starred Ice Cube and Chris Tucker as Craig and Smokey respectively, had been Gray's breakthrough directorial debut and established him as a filmmaker who could successfully translate hip-hop culture and urban comedy to mainstream audiences. The film's success was what led to Gray being chosen to direct Set It Off, making this costume reference a way for the director to acknowledge the project that had launched his career in Hollywood. The decision to include this visual callback was likely Gray's way of creating a connection between his two films while also providing a treat for observant fans who had seen both movies. Since Friday had become a cult classic almost immediately after its release, many viewers of Set It Off would have been familiar with the distinctive look and style of Craig and Smokey's characters, making this background detail a rewarding discovery for those who noticed it. This type of director's Easter egg was becoming more common in the 1990s as filmmakers began developing recognizable visual styles and building connections between their various projects. Gray's inclusion of this Friday reference also helped establish a sense of continuity within his body of work, suggesting that his films existed within a shared universe of Los Angeles street culture. The background actors wearing these specific outfits would have required deliberate planning and coordination from the costume department, indicating that this was an intentional reference rather than a coincidence, and demonstrating Gray's attention to detail in creating connections between his films. Fact 9. Real theater violence during screenings. The release of Set It Off was unfortunately overshadowed by incidents of real violence that occurred at movie theaters during the film's opening weekend in November of 1996, with the most serious incident taking place in Lakewood, California, where a shooting left 3 people injured. These violent episodes created controversy around the film and raised questions about whether movies depicting criminal activity could somehow inspire copycat behavior or attract audiences prone to conflict. The Lakewood shooting was particularly tragic because it involved innocent moviegoers who were simply trying to enjoy a night out at the cinema, and the incident highlighted ongoing concerns about safety at theaters, showing films that dealt with urban themes or featured predominantly African American casts. Reports from the time indicated that the violence was not directly related to the content of the movie itself, but rather stemmed from conflicts between individuals who happened to be at the theater that evening. Similar incidents of theater violence had occurred during screenings of other urban-themed films in the early and mid-1990s, including shootings at showings of New Jack City and Boys and the Hood. Creating a troubling pattern that worried both theater owners and film distributors. These incidents often led to increased security measures at certain theaters, and sometimes resulted in theaters choosing not to show particular films in areas where they anticipated potential problems. Despite these unfortunate events, Set It Off went on to become a major box office success, earning over $41 million worldwide, and proving that audiences were eager to see stories about strong female characters dealing with economic hardship and social injustice. The film's success demonstrated that the actions of a few individuals should not overshadow the artistic merit and cultural importance of the work itself. Theater industry officials at the time emphasized that the violence was not connected to the film's content and represented isolated incidents rather than a systematic problem, though the coincidence of multiple violent events during the opening weekend created lasting associations between the movie and these tragic occurrences. Fact 10. Mystery name change in credits. One of the most puzzling continuity errors in Set It Off involves Queen Latifah's character Cleo, who is referred to throughout the entire film by her nickname but mysteriously appears on official arrest records shown on screen as Katz Deanna, a completely different name that is never mentioned or explained anywhere else in the movie. This strange discrepancy has left fans scratching their heads for decades, as there is no scene or dialogue that connects the tough, gun-wielding character everyone calls Cleo to this formal legal name that appears in police documentation. Throughout the film, Cleo is consistently identified by her single nickname in all conversations, whether she's talking to her friends, her girlfriend Ursula, or even during confrontations with law enforcement officers who are pursuing the bank robbers. The character is so strongly associated with the name Cleo that it becomes part of her identity and persona, making the sudden appearance of Katz Deanna on arrest paperwork feel completely disconnected from the character audiences have been following. This type of naming inconsistency is particularly unusual in a major studio production, where script supervisors and continuity experts typically catch these kinds of errors before they make it to the final cut. The fact that official police records would show a completely different name suggests that either there was a last-minute script change that wasn't properly coordinated across all departments, or perhaps the prop department created arrest records using placeholder names that were never updated to match the final character names. Some fans have speculated that Deanna Katz might have been Cleo's original full legal name in an earlier version of the script, with Cleo serving as a street nickname, but no official explanation has ever been provided by the filmmakers or production team. The mystery deepens because this name change only appears in background documentation that most viewers wouldn't notice unless they were paying very close attention to the details shown in police scenes. This unexplained discrepancy remains one of the film's most enduring mysteries. Fact 11. Lightning Fast 39-day production. The production of Set It Off was completed in an impressively short 39 days, a remarkably fast shooting schedule for a complex heist film that featured multiple bank robbery sequences, car chases, shootouts, and dramatic scenes across numerous Los Angeles locations. This rapid pace of filming was made possible by the $9 million budget that New Line Cinema had allocated for the project, which required the production team to work efficiently and make every shooting day count without the luxury of extended reshoots or multiple takes that bigger budget films typically enjoy. Most action films of similar scope and complexity typically require shooting schedules of 60 to 90 days or more, especially when they involve elaborate set pieces like bank robberies, police chases, and explosive finale sequences that demand careful coordination between stunt teams, special effects crews, and multiple camera operators. The fact that director F. Gary Gray and his team managed to capture all of these elements in just over 5 weeks of filming speaks to both the careful pre-production planning and the focused execution that characterized the entire project. This compressed timeline meant that the cast and crew had to be exceptionally well prepared before cameras started rolling, with detailed storyboards, precise scheduling, and minimal room for error or creative experimentation during the actual filming process. The actors, including Jada Pinkett Smith, Queen Latifah, Vivica Fox, and Kimberly Elise, had to arrive on set knowing their lines perfectly and ready to deliver their performances without the benefit of extensive rehearsal time or multiple attempts to get scenes exactly right. The success of completing such an ambitious film in 39 days also demonstrated Gray's skills as a director who could work within tight constraints while still delivering a polished final product. His background directing music videos had taught him to work quickly and efficiently with limited resources, skills that proved invaluable when applied to feature filmmaking with similar time and budget restrictions. The film's ultimate success, both critically and commercially, proved that a fast shooting schedule didn't necessarily compromise the quality of the final product. Fact 12. TikTok viral song decades later. More than 20 years after Set It Off premiered in theaters, Lori Perry's powerful ballad Up Against the Wind, which plays during the film's emotional climax, experienced an unexpected renaissance when it became a viral soundbite on TikTok and other social media platforms in the late 2010s. This dramatic song, which underscores some of the movie's most heartbreaking moments as the main characters face their tragic fates, found new life with a completely different generation of internet users who discovered its emotional impact through short-form video content. The song's journey from a 1996 movie soundtrack to internet meme status demonstrates how social media can breathe new life into older cultural content in ways that the original creators never could have anticipated. Young TikTok users began incorporating clips of Perry's soaring vocals into videos that ranged from genuinely emotional content to humorous parodies, often using the song's dramatic intensity to underscore everything from personal struggles to everyday inconveniences with exaggerated theatrical effect. What made this viral moment particularly interesting was that many of the people using the song as a soundbite had never actually seen Set It Off, and were encountering Lori Perry's performance completely divorced from its original context within the film's narrative. The song's powerful delivery and emotional weight made it perfect for the kind of dramatic, over-the-top content that thrives on social media platforms, where users often employ intense music to add comedic or emotional emphasis to their videos. This unexpected internet fame introduced Set It Off to audiences who were not even born when the film was originally released, creating a bridge between the movie's original fan base and younger viewers who discovered it through viral content. The phenomenon also highlighted how certain elements of films can take on entirely new meanings and purposes when they are separated from their original context and repurposed for modern digital communication. Voice modification apps and soundboard websites began featuring the song as a popular downloadable sound effect for content creators. Fact 13. Queen Latifah's MAD-TV sequel. In 1997, just 1 year after Set It Off became a box office hit, Queen Latifah made a surprise appearance on the sketch comedy show MAD-TV, where she reprised her tough-as-nails character Cleo in what essentially served as an unofficial sequel to the film. This comedic sketch featured Latifah performing alongside MAD-TV cast member Phil LaMarr, bringing back the gun-wielding, no-nonsense persona that had made her performance in the original movie so memorable and intimidating. The MAD-TV appearance was particularly significant because it represented one of the rare instances where an actor returned to play a specific movie character outside of an actual film sequel, especially in a comedy context, that allowed for a completely different interpretation of the role. While the original Set It Off was a serious crime drama that dealt with themes of economic desperation and social injustice, the MAD-TV sketch allowed Queen Latifah to explore the comedic potential of Cleo's aggressive personality and street-smart attitude. This crossover between film and television comedy was somewhat unusual for the time period, as most actors typically moved on from their movie roles rather than revisiting them in different media formats. Queen Latifah's willingness to bring Cleo back for a sketch comedy show demonstrated both her versatility as a performer and her understanding of how popular the character had become with audiences who had connected with film's portrayal of strong, determined women fighting against difficult circumstances. The collaboration with Phil LaMarr, who was known for his impressions and character work on MAD-TV, likely created an interesting dynamic that played off the contrast between Cleo's serious intimidating presence, and the absurd situations that are typical of sketch comedy. This appearance also helped keep Set It Off in the public consciousness during the period when the film was transitioning from theaters to home video and television broadcasts. The sketch served as a testament to the lasting impact that Queen Latifah's performance had made on popular culture. Fact 14. Daily script rewrites on set. According to Vivica A. Fox, the filming process for Set It Off involved an unusually collaborative approach to the screenplay, with the cast literally throwing out script pages on a daily basis while director F. Gary Gray encouraged the actors to improvise and make dialogue changes that felt more natural and authentic to their characters. This level of creative freedom was relatively uncommon in Hollywood productions at the time, where actors were typically expected to stick closely to the written script without making significant alterations to the dialogue or scene structure. Fox later explained that this constant rewriting process was essential to making the film work, stating that when scenes didn't feel right or dialogue seemed forced, the director gave the cast permission to speak up and suggest alternatives that would better serve the story and their characters. This collaborative environment allowed the four lead actresses to develop a genuine chemistry and create conversations that felt like real friends talking to each other rather than actors reciting memorized lines from a script. The daily script revisions were particularly important, given that the film dealt with serious themes of economic hardship, desperation, and friendship under extreme circumstances, and the actors needed to find ways to make their characters' motivations and relationships feel believable and emotionally honest. Gray's willingness to let his cast contribute to the writing process demonstrated his confidence in their abilities and his understanding that the best performances often come from actors who feel personally connected to their material. This improvisational approach helped create some of the film's most memorable moments and authentic-feeling dialogue, as the actresses were able to draw from their own experiences and instincts about how their characters would really speak and behave in various situations. The process also meant that the final film contained elements that hadn't been planned in the original screenplay, making it a truly collaborative creative effort between the writers, director, and performers. Fox credited this team-oriented approach as one of the key factors that made Set It Off such a successful and emotionally resonant film. Fact 15. Detective training with real LAPD. John C. McGinley took his preparation for the role of Detective Strode extremely seriously, going so far as to work directly with a retired Los Angeles Police Department detective to ensure that his portrayal of law enforcement would be as authentic and realistic as possible. This level of dedication to character research was particularly important given that Detective Strode serves as one of the primary antagonists in the film, representing the police force that the four main characters are trying to evade throughout their bank robbery spree. McGinley's commitment to accuracy involved spending time with his police consultant to learn about real detective work, including how investigations are conducted, how officers interact with suspects and witnesses, and the specific procedures that would be followed in a case involving multiple bank robberies. This hands-on training helped him understand not just the technical aspects of police work, but also the mindset and attitude that a veteran detective would bring to a high-profile case like the one depicted in the film. The decision to work with an actual retired LAPD detective was especially significant because Set It Off was set in Los Angeles and dealt with crimes that would realistically fall under LAPD jurisdiction, making it important for McGinley's performance to reflect the specific culture and approach of that particular police department. His consultant would have been able to provide insights into how LA detectives actually handle bank robbery cases and what their investigative methods would look like in real life. This type of method acting preparation, where performers immerse themselves in the actual profession they're portraying, often results in more convincing and nuanced performances that audiences can recognize as authentic, even if they don't have personal experience with law enforcement. McGinley's research helped him create a Detective Strode who felt like a real cop rather than a generic movie villain, adding credibility to the film's portrayal of the cat-and-mouse game between the bank robbers and the police officers pursuing them. The authenticity that McGinley brought to his role enhanced the overall realism of the film's law enforcement scenes.